Welcome on stage, Carsten.
A very long title to describe what I'm talking about. It's basically Sling moving to the latest Servlet APIs. And why is that so important? Because the Servlet API is the backbone of Apache Sling and obviously of AEM then as well. So whatever you're doing with AEM, it's probably the Servlet API is involved. A little bit about me. As you know, I'm Carsten, working for Adobe. I founded Sling together with Bertrand and then Felix many years ago. And that's why I'm here as well, because I also worked on this Jakarta stuff, this new stuff. It involved Sling and Felix. These days, I'm more in the AI world, right? Generative stuff, working on our agentic offerings for AEM and having a lot of fun with that stuff. I'm trying to get rid of myself, so AI is doing all my work. I didn't succeed that much yet. Anyway, because we had this quote from Duke Nukem, I thought I'd put a different quote on this slide. I'll talk a little bit about the why. Why do we want to move to the Jakarta Servlet API? The challenges in doing so, which I think can apply to similar topics as well. And then the approaches. Actually, the approaches should apply, not the challenges. And then how you can use it if you want to. So let's start with the why. If you look at this slide, this is the evolution of the Java Servlet API. It started in 1996. It's really that old. I'm a little bit older, but not that much. And it evolved in various iterations. And then in 2020, the Jakarta Servlet API came around. Now, I could make a quiz of where Sling fits into that picture, but it's pretty easy. It's around here. When we started Sling, as Bertrand mentioned, 2007, we started with Servlet version 2.3, I believe, and then moved to 2.5. Later on, tried to use the new features of Servlet 3, but more or less the core is at that level. And you see a lot of things happened afterwards. New functionality was added, which is not really directly usable if you're using Sling. And there will be, I think, a new version coming up shortly as well. So, why? Obviously, we look a little bit outdated. And with we, I mean the code, not myself. So we are around 2008 is what we use, or 2013, depends on how you measure it. The important part for me is why updating or supporting the newest APIs makes sense is if you want to use other open source projects, then they usually are much more change-friendly, right? They adapt new features, just bring out a new major version, which is completely incompatible to the previous version, but they move faster to newer things. So most likely, if you want to integrate some third-party library, it will be based on Jakarta Servlet API, which then makes it a little bit difficult to bring it into Sling. It's possible, but not really nice. And with the change to Jakarta Servlet, the frequency of releases increased. Right, so whatever is coming in the future, we want to be prepared for that and allow our users to use it in the end. And obviously, yeah, we want to look a little bit more modern, a little bit more relevant in that space as well. Now, this nice diagram took me a lot of time to create it. Is showing the two different flavors of where this Servlet API plays a role. One on the left is the API that the Servlet container is providing you. So it might be Jetty, Tomcat, or any commercial solution, right? And then inside you have your web app running, and that includes Sling. And inside Sling you can use the Java Servlet API, JavaX Servlet API. And on the outside we already support for quite some time the Jakarta Servlet API. So you can run Sling in any newer Servlet containers. But on the inside, that's where the problem starts, right? We are still based on the Java-X Servlet API. So how do we do that and support the Jakarta Servlet API? And the real challenge here is compatibility. Because when Oracle decided to dissolve the JCP, the Java Community Process, and donate the specifications to the Eclipse Foundation, that took some time, but in the end, Oracle said, yeah, you know, we own the trademark on JavaX, right? So whatever you're doing in the future with our specifications, you can't use it. And that basically means that at the end, before new specifications could be put out from Jakarta, all the packages had to be renamed from JavaX to Jakarta, which is a complete incompatible change, right? The good thing is, with the new specification, the 5.0 version that came out, there were no changes in features or class names or methods or whatever. It was just renaming of the packages and obviously the spec as well. So that's the good thing. So basically, if you want to move from JavaX to Jakarta, just rename the packages, your package imports, and you're done. And then the Eclipse Foundation or the Jakarta community working on the specification said, okay, we put so much pain on our users, what can we do in addition to that? Right? So they came up with Jakarta Servlet 6 and basically removed all deprecated methods and classes. So if you want to move from 5 to 6, you have to change your code, which is, by the way, a good thing. If you're using something deprecated, change it to the non-deprecated version. There might be a lightning talk about that, I heard. So you have these things, which are basically incompatible changes, and how can you deal with that? If you look at the ecosystem around that, how did they manage with that change? For example, if you look at Eclipse Jetty, right? There's Jetty 10 supporting Servlet 4, which is still JavaX based. Then they came up with the 11 version that supports Jakarta Servlet. So you have to pick and choose what you want to use, and then adjust your code accordingly, right? You can't mix and match that. You're either on the old stuff or on the new stuff. No way in between. With 12, they changed it a little bit, but still, for a single web app, you have to decide which version to use. So that's not really user-friendly, I think. And other containers like Tomcat did a similar approach. Now, OSGi, because we worked on OSGi and helped the specifications come along, we did it, of course, much better than that. Forget the first bullet point. In 2018, we came up with the HTTP Whiteboard specification, which is the way of developing servlets, filters, and whatnot in OSGi. So that's the way, as Sling is, based on OSGi, how you do things. And that supported, obviously, the old version. And then we worked for a long time on the new version, the next one. And if you forget about the version number, just look at the name, you see we renamed the specification. Because it's a new specification. Servlet Whiteboard sounds similar, is the same thing in the end. Feature parity, we did the same trick as the servlet specification did. We just renamed the packages. Everything else stayed the same. But we specified it in a way that you can run all these things in parallel within a single servlet container. That was my main goal when I drove that specification 3 years ago. So that's obviously much more user-friendly. And then we did the implementation in open source, Apache Felix project, based on Jetty 12. Jetty 12, as you've seen, is Jakarta 6 based. It supports all these specifications. It allows you to mix and match. You can run old code, new code, and it will work all seamlessly together. And that's much more user-friendly, of course, because if you write new code, you can start with a new specification. You don't have to touch your old code, or you might want to. You can still, in a single project, mix and match. So, and that left us with the topic, how do we support Jakarta 6 in Sling? Now, for the younger people, this is Java code. If you've not seen it before, Java code. So this is how usually, if you're developing a servlet, how it looks like. You have some imports. You see you're importing the JavaX servlet stuff. You're importing some interfaces from Sling, and then you write your code. So you have a dependency on both. Okay. The first approach, and I think we discussed it last year at this place at the community table, and then at the hackathon the next day. This was the approach that we all agreed on 1 year ago, which is we simply say, okay, we create a complete new API. It uses the same class names, method names, and so on as the old version, but we change JavaX Servlet with Jakarta Servlet in it. Completely incompatible, so we do a major version change, breaking everyone. That's always the best thing you can do. And the good thing, of course, is that it's very easy to implement, right? In Sling, right? So all the implementations of that API that we have to update in Sling is just we rename the packages and we are done. And actually, I think I did that over a weekend. Worked perfectly, looked good. And then I started actually looking at projects using the Sling API, right? And what you need to do there to use these new things. Now, the first thing is, if you're doing a major version change in a single Java module, you can only use one of that version, right? Either the old one or the new one. That means within that single module, you can't mix and match old usage with new usage. Which means, if you want to use the new stuff in your module, either create a new module or change all the code in there. Not really nice. But I think you could probably live with that. But it gets way more complicated when you have testing in your module involved. And Bertrand, I think I had it on the slide, was like over 50 modules alone in Sling for testing. These are obviously all built on the old stuff. And then you have to, if you're using the new API, you would need to have new versions of the testing. But there might be other testing frameworks on top of that in the open source, which then would need to be changed as well. So it's a huge change in the end, just to make the implementation easy. And that's usually a wrong thing, right? Don't make the implementation easy. You can make it complicated, make the usage easy. And we're also thinking about having build time and runtime tooling, so you could, you don't need to change your code, it would just run transparently at runtime. And then the updated code would look like that, right? Just for the usage, it's okay-ish, but again, it gets more complicated in a project. So I tried that and said, okay, no way. Then you have the thing that OSGi more or less did. You have the side-by-side, and that's the way we now did. We basically duplicated all the API, and in the copy changed from JavaX to Jakarta Servlet. That is much harder to implement, because now you have to deal with these cases where there is a service implementing the old interface, a service implementing the new interface. How do they work together? What is the ordering and so on? So there are many things to consider. But we did it, so no, don't worry about that. And it's no breaking change. You can just start in your existing code to use the new stuff. And then the updated code looks like this. And Bertrand mentioned it, right? Naming is hard. So I used my own intelligence and came up with these nice little naming scheme, which basically, if you want to use new stuff, you put in Jakarta into the class name, right? after Sling. So it's Sling Jakarta instead of just Sling whatever. Pretty easy. You can automate this renaming if you want to use AI, whatever. And we selected that. Yeah, and then in Sling, obviously, we support all these specifications, all the OSGi specifications, Jakarta Servlet, diva-e Servlet. You can mix and match. Going on forward, probably the new stuff we will be doing, hopefully we'll do some new stuff, will be Jakarta Servlet only, so we don't continue having duplicate interfaces and functionality. But it allows for this seamless transition. And that's pretty easy if you want to use it. There are a few caveats here. One is the requirements. What do you need to use the new Jakarta Servlet API and the Sling API? You need to be on Java 17 because Jetty 12 requires Java 17. You need Jetty 12, okay, obviously. Jetty 12, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on your view, comes with new dependencies. So it requires SLF for J2. You need that at runtime as well. And then you just deploy the latest released Sling bundles, and you can enjoy that stuff. My suggestion to move to the new things is update your dependencies, right? Update to the latest Sling API version. Replace the usage of deprecated API. As I said, it's always a good thing, not just related to JavaX or Jakarta, for everything. Rename the servlet packages, rename the OSGi Whiteboard packages that you use, and then rename the Sling API. Again, you can do this automatically, right? It's just search and replace. Pretty easy to do. And there might be a few adjustments. I think there are one or two corner cases which are documented as well, where you need to do a little bit more. But they are really rarely used. So my suggestion would be for new code, use a new API, right? It's always better if you're starting new, use the latest and greatest. I personally wouldn't change old code until it's really necessary. It's a little bit contradictory to what I said early on, get rid of deprecated usage, but I mean, if you have a huge code base, yeah, you could do it. If you need to transition in your code between the old and the new Servlet API or vice versa, or the old and the new Sling API, we have wrappers for that, so it's pretty easy and straightforward to do. And just use tools for the migration. Open Rewrite is pretty good with these things, especially also getting your project on Java 17, and then use coding agents. I did a test with some coding agent and updated a module to Java 17 and the new Sling API, and it worked flawlessly. One more thing, which I guess would be a question someone has, is of course, what about AEM, right? Especially cloud service and LTS 6.5. So for sure, we will not support Jakarta Servlet on older versions. So 6.5, everything before, no way. A main reason is it requires Java 17, and that's the reason why we came up with 6.5 LTS, right? So we can run on your Java versions. And there we have the same problems with the requirements, right? Java 17 for cloud service, we still have customers on older Java versions, so please migrate to Java 17 there, because that enables us to do the other steps. SLF4J is a huger, larger problem in the end, because we have a lot of customers depending on the old API. We need to work with them to get them rid of those dependencies. So that will be a longer process in the end, I think. And then we need to upgrade to the Jetty version. Luckily, we are already on Jetty 11. So from 11 to 12, it should be painless. There might be some minor difference in the default behavior, but that should be good. And then we need to incorporate the latest Sling modules. So all this talking on that slide, just to say, I have no idea when this will happen. Seriously, it will definitely not happen this year. That is for sure. My hope would be next year. We'll see. And with that, I think I managed to be nearly on time. So yeah, thank you.
Everybody was curious about the ETA stuff, but you've already answered it. We don't know. Radu is curious. Any new features in the Jakarta Servlet API that are not yet supported in Sling, but would improve the quality of life? Remove the requirements for customer implementation and achieve the same thing?
So first of all, I would say, if you're using Sling, you already have a very good life. That's the first thing. No, seriously, I should stop my jokes. I think the short answer is basically no. There are a few new tiny additions to the API, but so far I haven't really seen anything major that would be a game changer. Right? I think the biggest thing would be, which already was introduced in version 3, is the asynchronous stuff, right? Which you could use, but that happened already before.
Is there already an idea on when JavaX or Servlet API will be dropped?
I think we will realistically never drop it. So there's so much code out there depending on it, requiring everyone to upgrade all code is nearly impossible, right? So it will always be supported. That's basically in the end the reason why we choose this more painful way for the implementation, also for later on maintaining Sling, because we have to maintain these duplicate codes in the end.
We're done with the question. Carsten, it was great to have you on stage.
Thanks.